welcome to episode 51 of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men the Animated Series weekly recap podcast. I'm Rod. I've said this before. I'm a songwriter and musician. If you care about indie music, you can look me up on Spotify and all the streaming services and stuff. Or recently, I've gained a little bit of an audience on TikTok for being a 90s nostalgia junkie. So if that's your thing, I lay in bed and talk to you on my pillow.
I'm JC, and I'm mad at Rod because this is actually the fucking anniversary episode, Rod.
Oh, this is the anniversary.
Yeah.
Oh, happy 1 year,
yeah,
man.
great job, Rod.
I got you a mug.
I got you a hat.
Yeah, see?
Yeah. Happy anniversary, fucker. Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our weekly podcast series. We are going back and watching every single episode of the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series in their original intended script order, building up to the release of X-Men 97, which is coming to Disney Plus theoretically later this year.
Yeah, we're time traveling. This is definitely not being recorded at the end of 2022.
Shut up, Rod. Stop pulling back the curtain. Don't ruin the wizard.
Yeah. Some quick reminders. We're a recap show about a series that started now over 30 years ago. There will be spoilers. If you don't want to spoil it for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, and come back. We'll do our best to avoid mentioning anything about future episodes we haven't covered yet.
Also, why are you listening to a recap show if you haven't watched the show?
That is kind of weird. I listen to all kinds of stuff that I think is boring. Should I subtweet? I was going to shout out a podcast, but I'm afraid that's going to get me in trouble because I have a feeling I know people involved with it. Yep. But it helps me go to sleep every night. Mm-hmm. Thank you, unnamed person. That's going to be a game in the comments trying to figure out which podcast that is.
I would love it if we had comments.
We're currently not sponsored or affiliated with Disney or Disney Plus in any way. We're currently on that mission.
And we are just going to make enemies of other podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on the social media of your choosing at Cyclops IWFM Pod, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, because why not at this point? Some boomer wants to listen to our bullshit. And of course, make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast service if you're listening this to somewhere else for some reason, like YouTube. Finally, we record these episodes in batches. That's why we get weirder and dumber as the nights progress. You could tell what the first episode is of a batch and what the last one is. Also, if we're reacting to any news, whether it's about the upcoming series or IRL things like certain people launching digital trading cards where John is talking lots of shit, that's why.
Now on to the show. Today we're going to be talking about Season 4, Episode 14, titled Bloodlines. It aired October 26, 1996, and currently sits at a 7.7 star rating on IMDb. I know you mentioned before that Eric Lewald said that sometimes themes get repetitive.
This is 4 episodes in a row. One is a two-parter, granted, but this is 4 episodes in a row that are about family trauma.
Yeah, and also that there was a point in this series, I feel like, when you could read a title and be like, oh yeah, I think I know what that's about, even just from memory. And you're like, Bloodlines. There are literally a dozen things I could guess this might be about. Because there's so many like bloodline, like you said, like family trauma, but specifically like genetics and stuff.
I think at this point they were just having fun titling shit.
Right. Wasn't there, I think the first season of Family Guy, they were trying to like title them after like murder mysteries or something, and they were like, oh, we can't keep doing this.
There was one thing, I can't remember what it was. I want to say it was like video games where the chapters in the game were literally named after episodes of Golden Girls.
Oh, really? Oh,
I would do dumb shit like that. Like, dude, when I was at WWE, we would come up with the most random episode titles because the episode title was never said. It was just our own internal stuff.
Yeah.
And then people started noticing and they're like, the fuck are you guys talking about?
Yeah. Anyway, my first note for this episode was, oh man, weird intro. This is going to be a questionable episode.
I mean, look at the dates on it. This one came out October 26th of 1996. So this is, from a release order perspective, this is one of the last episodes. This is like last 10 to air.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember if I actually watched this in real time or even in the recent after the show ended, because then there's the new intro. You're like, which studio did this episode?
And the studio was the good studio.
Yeah,
I will say that it was, but it was still one of the latter episodes.
Yeah, so I don't think I actually saw this when it actually aired. So they open up with UBC news. I'm not sure if that's significant or if we have seen that before, because once again, Goldfish.
We've seen different iterations that are parodies of like NBC and CNN and stuff like that. So I don't think there was anything particularly significant about that.
They very quickly jump into some really just IRL stuff of any time period in recent American history. And they talk about a sudden surge of anti-mutant outrage. They show clips, which was interesting. We were talking before the podcast about this, which I interpreted as depiction of the mutant version of the Ruby Bridges photo, the Norman Rockwell painting of her attending a desegregated school and stuff, and then you had
For me, it reminded me of the image because the girl was older. Because Ruby was very young.
Yeah.
I interpreted somebody that was like high school or college age, so it reminded me of the image of Hazel Massery, and I apologize if I'm getting it wrong. And she was one of the Little Rock Nine, and that was the image that it evoked for me. That is actually a known mutant in that image, though. That is Blink.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
I do know Blink because of some TV show.
Oh, really?
There's a Fox TV show where gal that I can't remember her name, but she's good in a garbage show. And I'm trying to remember what it was.
Okay. But
Anyway.
but that was Blink, who in the comics, Blink is most known for being one of the exiles. She came out of the Age of Apocalypse.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But that was the character, and it was somebody being escorted through an angry group of like bigots. Let's call it out as it is. Yeah.
And we were actually commenting like it is both a testament to the show, but also sad for true history that we both pulled different images for the one reference.
Yeah.
And that there were also, when we went to go Google it, there were multiple.
Yeah. To try to remember and find the specific names of the people, it was like the amount of results that were coming up from all the way back to the 50s and 60s to the modern day, still getting these kinds of images is just, it's heartbreaking. And then you see there's a pizza place that has a mutant's welcome sign in the front, and it blows up. And that reminded me, there was the recent person who attacked, it was either a pizza place or an ice cream store, but it's the one time one of the MAGA people was actually wearing their mask and they firebombed it.
Because they said there was some secret thing in the basement or whatever.
Was that it?
I think there was something. It was a pizza place where it was like hearsay on some, probably a 4chan, 8chan thing or whatever or something,
or True Social or some bullshit. Yeah. But yeah, it was somebody who was anti-LGBT and decided to firebomb it, and that was within the last
few years.
No, not even a few years. That was like the last 3 months from when we're recording this. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it's not the one. See, that's even sadder. It's not even the one I was
It's not the one you're thinking of. This was just...
But the one I was thinking was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, this was a recent anti-LGBT violence scenario.
Yeah, history keeps repeating itself, and few people can see the patterns. And we won't dwell on this, but like I always say...
But I will say, before you give your thought, it's actually hard not to dwell on it in an episode like this, because what we're going to talk about in a second with the Friends of Humanity, literally the fact that they are wearing hoods, it's even less of a veiled metaphor at that point.
With the Ruby Bridges specifically, she just within the last couple of years hit retirement age. And she was I believe, and forgive me if I'm incorrect about the history, and anybody can correct me, but I believe she was the first black girl to attend like a desegregated school. And so those photos are usually portrayed in like black and white, but they were fully capable of doing color stuff.
Yes.
They might even be taken in color and things. And also that's something. So I just within the last couple of years have been learning a lot about Asian American history. And for whatever reason you don't know, I'm Asian American. I wasn't taught any of that stuff in school. I learned it through like talk show hosts and doing my own digging in history and stuff, in American history, like not even like overseas. Part of my theory of like why inaccurate portrayal of history is taught specifically in America isn't just because of patriotism, like you just to try to portray things well. It's that it was so recent that you would you would definitely see someone's actual grandparents throwing rocks at like minority kids and stuff in photos.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think grandma's ready for that.
When we were looking through the pictures, I had shared with Rod, there was the recent outing of Jerry Jones, who's the Dallas Cowboy owner, of another time where there was a protest against black students, and Jerry's face is clearly shown as being one of those angry people protesting against those students.
Yeah.
And it's like your point. Somebody's grandfather was in a photo being a racist, and this is just one of the most famous people being shown in that light.
Because I think if we start adding some more of those photos to textbooks, people would start picking out their actual relatives that are probably still around.
It's easier to point out a slave owner from the 1800s because they're dead now. Yeah.
My 2 cents about that. But I just say if we're going to learn about history, we should be a little bit more accurate about it, because we can't learn from it
if we deny it.
If we just ignore it and stuff, it's just going to keep happening again. So that's whether it doesn't even, it's not ever like the same thing. Race has always been a thing. Now it's just
talked
sexuality and stuff. Like it's always going to be something. So we can't address the underlying principle, then the different versions of it are just never, the versions might slightly change and stuff, but the principle like just needs to be addressed. So anyway, we see a face we haven't seen in a while, and we see a clip of Graydon Creed,
which is not just in the show where we find out it's been a year that he's been around. we actually haven't seen him since season 2. Like the entirety of season 3, he is not in there.
A few years.
Yeah.
And he's at some sort of hearing. And he's denying involvement.
I got the vibe it was Congress or Senate, but I got the vibe it was Congress.
But he's denying involvement in, you're saying specifically Blink's case.
Just any of the cases. He was denying any involvement, but he also was praising his patriotic countrymen. And again, like, we try not to dive too deep into politics within the show. But at the same time, like, the correlation 30 years later, it's a 1-to-1, man.
Yeah.
Like, you can't deny some of the shit being spouted right now that hits on this.
And also, this is not like a legal thing, but in my personal opinion, if you say that you didn't do it, but you support it, you did it in my book. So,
yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. So
we cut over to some mysterious location where the Friends of Humanity, which we have also not seen in a while, are meeting, and they are not subtle.
They are now formally wearing hoods. The only difference between them and the KKK at this point is literally they have their mouths showing with their hoods as opposed to covering everything.
And they're not pointed. They're like rounded.
It's not. He's not hidden. The corollary is not subtle.
Yeah, what did you say in the last episode? The gas station He-Man action figures.
Yeah.
Version. So Creed is back. I was, for whatever reason, was under the impression he was in jail for a year. You said he was just covering her and hiding.
Yeah, so he walks proudly back into the room and he's like, "Thank you for the welcome back. I'm ready to resume control." And they're like, "No, they're like, you've been in hiding for a year."
And just a reminder to anybody, in case you didn't remember or have recently just started listening to us, like, Creed was outed a long while ago as Sabretooth's son. And so for him to be like the leader of anti-mutant groups, it's ironic, but also poetic justice, kind of.
And the one thing that is different from the comics to this is that they actually changed Sabretooth's name to be Graydon Creed Sr., whereas in the comics, we all know Sabretooth as Victor Creed.
Just to hammer home that like he's a junior.
It's like it's not his uncle, it's definitely his kid.
Yeah.
Except if you follow Mexican wrestling rules, in which case Rey Mysterio and Rey Mysterio Jr., that is a uncle-nephew relationship, not a father-son.
Oh, so them and James Bond have the thing. 'Cause remember James Bond
Jr.? Yep.
Cartoon?
Yep.
It was a nephew? It's like...
It was his nephew.
They never addressed why it's the nephew and stuff.
That was a good show. We should bring that show back.
I like the show. I just recently watched a YouTube mini documentary about the legality of that show and how complicated it was.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting. I actually just missed that era of the 90s where they were just like throwing every franchise out of like wall and just seeing what stuck.
Also, before we move on, that show didn't age well. Lots of really bad stereotypes in that show.
Oh yeah, I'm guessing so.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah, no,
yeah.
The main villain.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Anyway, speaking of,
but they are basically saying, dude, you're not getting in control. The council controls. You lied about your heritage. You're the offspring of Sabretooth. And Creed says that was just a traumatic response and I'm still one of you.
And then they're like, that's not the only thing in your blood. And they throw a file at him.
Which I love that visual. I want to throw a file at somebody's face so bad. You're safe, Rod. There are no files in the house.
Although for certain groups of people now, like, evidence and files don't matter. So
yeah.
Literally.
No, but I want the physical act of throwing that file with paper at somebody's face.
Like at a complex at Mar-a-Lago.
Rod, you know you can't pick up files there. They're all locked in a safe.
Now.
Nope.
Anyway, so he looks at it. We don't see at the moment what it is. Highly implies that he has more family that is mutant.
Yeah, it is definitely like, this is a family tree reveal that you are not going to like.
And even, we know this later is not true, but, you know, especially at the time, is like in the 90s when you're watching this week to week, might have implied that like he might be a mutant or something, or the possibility
or he had a kid that turned out to be a mutant. Like it could have gone in any direction at that point.
And so he's like, you know what, this won't set me back. I can prove my loyalty.
Yep.
And you don't know what that means.
Nope. He said he would deliver all of them to prove his loyalty.
Which also in the show could like just mean a myriad of things. Which also family, it's wild. There's a lot to unpack there. There's
an old graphic from 2013, 2014. And unfortunately, because it like was uploaded to Facebook, the file size is so small that even when you zoom in, it's still very fucking tiny. But it's all the familial and romantic relationships within the X-Men. And it's a fucking like the most confusing but amazing infographic ever.
That's hilarious. A lot of closed circles, I'm going to assume.
Lots of branching trees and dotted lines.
Oh, no. Anyway, then we cut over to the X Mansion,
Yep.
where apparently they celebrate not only celebrate Halloween, but somehow kids have enough stamina to run across the private property to the front door.
Just said stamina.
See, Stan Lee, I don't know. I'm
Nope.
trying to justify myself.
Okay, but so what were the references of the three kids?
Yeah, so the three kids arrive at the door. First off, you clearly know it's Wolverine because of the voice, and then he reveals he's a beast mask on.
Yes.
He's trying to scare the kids. Then when the kids pop up, okay, so I had T-Rex, right? This is generic T-Rex, I'm assuming.
I would argue about the T-Rex, but hit the other
Okay.
two first.
Definitely Daredevil in the middle.
But it is the yellow suit version of it.
And then is that Spider-Man?
It's like dollar store Spider-Man.
Okay, I was wondering
Yeah.
because it's like that's not a character I know. It's definitely not Venom.
Yes.
But it's just because the iconography.
They also switch like spots of where the color scheme hits too. Yeah.
Oh, you mentioned this is a factoid in the previous episode. They couldn't use Spider-Man, right?
They could not use Spider-Man directly.
Okay. So
yeah.
That's, so also that. So this reference, and then also,
We're going to do that as probably a one-shot episode, I feel like, because we got time to fill before the fall.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
And then the Nightcrawler episode with Mary Jane.
Yep.
That I guess they couldn't directly reference as Mary Jane, but they just put spider shit all over her stuff.
Yeah.
And then also there's a TikTok person who said that's not Mary Jane, that's Mary Jane.
It's definitely Mary Jane.
And maybe I'll just upload this clip to the TikTok so they see it.
Just you yelling.
Yeah. And then a previous episode where you just see like a
Just do the remix where it's just you yelling.
Yeah,
It's Mary Jane.
And then the previous episode, like early season, where it's just a hand
The thwip.
shooting
Yep.
a web. Yeah. So okay, so I got those. Okay. This might be the first out of cameos that I may have gotten correct, except you're going to disprove me of the T-Rex thing.
So here's the thing. I can't disprove the T-Rex. I can say if it is intended to be a reference, it's Devil Dinosaur.
I do not know who that is.
You do, because I've literally said the name Devil Dinosaur before, and your response was, I don't know who that is.
So I'm consistent.
It's Maverick 2.0. But that is not crystal clear that it's Devil Dinosaur, because it is just a red T-Rex.
Okay.
So it's really hard to prove that's the same thing, but it was a red T-Rex.
Because I just chalked it up to we've said this a few times in this podcast, but this is in that chunk of time in the mid-90s where Jurassic Park just owned the fucking world. I would argue, like, barely comparative to, like, how big the MCU hit at the beginning. Just
I mean, getting close to Lost World era at this point. Yeah.
Like, everything was about dinosaurs because we had not seen dinosaurs like that since ever before that first Jurassic Park movie. Speaking of Maverick, though, I was randomly, like, looking through our analytics on YouTube, and something about Maverick, I want to say, but except for our card unboxing stuff, I want to say one of the Maverick reference shorts is either the highest viewed or one of the top 3 highest viewed shorts. I thought that was pretty funny.
It's me yelling at you about Maverick. How is that the highest one? Hold on. So for those of you who are not addicted to it yet, I am playing a lot of Marvel Snap, and I'm showing Rod the Devil Dinosaur from Marvel Snap as reference.
Okay. Yeah, I would not recognize that. Yeah, you're right, though, because it's just like a...
It's a red T-Rex. Yeah.
I guess the red part, maybe.
Yeah, that's why I got the vibe it was Devil Dinosaur, just specifically because it's red. And how many times are you going to see a red T-Rex?
It's funny, I mentioned that shorts statistic about Maverick, like as if I couldn't just look it up on a magic device in my hand right now.
We have the power, Rod.
Okay, let's see. Most viewed. Okay, so our most viewed is the unboxing and Dark Phoenix Saga. Okay,
Which are Dice Masters.
Dice Matt, sorry.
Yep.
Our most viewed short from an episode is Maverick. Isn't in X-Men from episode 23 Out of the Past. But the first two before that are the unboxing of the Dice Masters and then the Voice of Rogue thing that you got at LA Comic Con.
That makes sense.
But yeah, the Maverick isn't an X-Men clip is our next highest viewed short.
It's literally just you saying something that is incorrect and people watching being like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
See, I'm the clickbait. I'm the living
You are living clickbait. Thank you, Rod.
Anyway, so
X-Men.
Yeah, and Wolverine doesn't even get to give the kids candy because they're all freaked out by Beast's face for some reason. And then it switches angles to inside the mansion. And my note here is, oh right, Jubilee exists. I don't know when we saw her last. It's been a while.
It's been a minute. She has not been in a batch of episodes in a row, no doubt.
Wolverine is just kind of venting to Jubilee that he's frustrated, and I have definitely not seen this episode before this watch. Wolverine brings up something that, this is like one of those if mutants were in the real world kind of thing. He's like, I hated the kids dress up as monsters and mutants. I'm like, yeah, like that. Fill in the blank with what you know, obviously, what would be like now.
Yeah.
That'd be weird. And then he's specifically upset that they get to just take it off the next day after having fun with it. It's very appropriate.
He said, tonight it's cute, but tomorrow they get to go back.
Yeah. So is this, I don't know. It's interesting. I didn't know that they were like, I didn't see this as a kid, but there was a chance that I did.
Yeah.
That as a kid, I could have been being taught the principles of appropriation through a Saturday morning cartoon. That's interesting.
Yes. Jubilee is maybe don't scare the hell out of the kids. Doorbell rings, she takes it, and then instead of it being a trick-or-treater, it's Nightcrawler.
Yeah, which I forgot. Jubilee doesn't know who he is.
No. She may have heard about it from Wolverine, but she has not met Nightcrawler, and we didn't have digital cameras.
Yeah, and she freaks, obviously, at the beginning, because I think the only person she's seen that's even close is Beast.
Yeah.
But now add a tail.
Again, the tail, eventually you do see it, but it's not super prevalent right at the beginning.
He has glowing eyes.
The glowing eyes are the freaky part. The glowing eyes and the three-fingered hands are definitely the... Wait a minute. That's a really good prosthesis, sir.
So Wolverine's like, oh, yeah, this is Nightcrawler, and then lets him in. And we cut over to Nightcrawler talking to Wolverine, Rogue, and Jubilee.
Yep.
That's all those there.
Yeah, and apparently everybody else has taken the night off. They did have that as a throwaway line, which I do appreciate. That was kind of like when Rogue and Gambit took a vacation, and that was their reason for not being around. It's like everybody took the night off, and it's like, okay, Gambit definitely went to some like S&M club in New York City.
Right. And maybe Jean and Cyclops are finally getting their fucking honeymoon.
Nope.
Did they get married finally?
Nope, still not married.
And Nightcrawler is explaining, this is very consistent for this character, so I'm glad that they pay attention to this. He's asking for help because he's explaining that he got a letter, like a ransom letter basically, from someone, a letter that's in his birth mother's handwriting.
Yes, because he had the note from when he was dropped in the basket apparently as a child.
River or something.
Moses.
Yeah. And,
Moses all the way, brother.
He's asking the X-Men for help because he's like, I'm a fucking monk. You're the X-Men.
Just to be clear, he does not say I'm a fucking monk. That's a different kind of monk, sir.
He's a celibate monk. And
Yep.
He's an abstinent monk. And
they don't even have wine.
Right.
They're not even the fun monks.
Yeah. They're just helping ski accident victims all day. But it's a good point. Except for the battle that happened like when the X-Men were last there.
A couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, realistically, yeah.
He's not really experienced in any of this stuff. And so he goes, because also X-Men have all this tech and he lives in a broken monastery now.
Yes, which they don't even fix. Yeah, and unlike the comic book version of Nightcrawler, this one has not gone through his swashbuckling era, so he isn't running around with the sword that came with the action figure.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. He
had a rapier.
Yeah, and actually, that's say it very carefully.
He had a rapier.
And a suction cup on his knee. I remember because me and my brother argued about if we should cut it off or not.
Because it looked ugly.
It looked ugly, but I was like, I get it. But like,
Well, that was like the Spider-Man action figure that like one of them was like, it was one of the best looking Spider-Man, but he had the giant suction cups on his palm. And I'm like, no, this is stupid.
My favorite Spider-Man action figure was the one that was super articulated. You know,
yeah.
Like, oh, that makes sense. Because he's Spider-Man. And also like clean figure.
Yes. But he was permanently in the hand in thwip pose.
That's true. Yeah. So he couldn't actually stick to anything or whatever.
He couldn't grab anything.
Poor man.
Wow, we really are just following the Joe Slepsky tradition of Nightcrawler tangents, aren't we?
It's Joe on Joe curse. So Wolverine specifically agrees to help him, and Rogue doesn't fight or anything. So all of them are like, okay, we'll help you. And then they start walking away. And the last two are Jubilee and Rogue left behind. And Jubilee's like, Beast kind of looks like Nightcrawler. Do you think they might be related? Almost as a joke. I think it's just because Jubilee's only seen two furry blue people before.
That's fair.
And
yeah, like you look at all the Morlocks and everything like that. This is literally the only second time we've had specifically blue and furry.
Yeah. Because maybe Mystique, but she's not furry. She's just blue.
I don't know off the top of my head, but has Jubilee ever seen Mystique directly?
I don't think so.
I don't know if she was in those episodes. I can't say for sure. Or no, because she was in the episode where she fell asleep under the tree where Rogue saw her. So she may not have seen her in person.
Yeah, just because she fell asleep.
Yeah, she was sleeping under a tree and they just left her.
Fucking teenagers.
Fucking DC.
Anyway, Rogue is like, oh, that'd be just as likely as me and Nightcrawler being kin. Big, dramatic, like foreshadowing
music. We as an audience actually already know the answer to that. That's the funny part, because we know that Mystique has revealed herself to be Rogue's mom, and we know from the flashback in the other episode that even though Kurt doesn't know it, we know that his mom is Mystique.
Which is funny because I would definitely not have inferred that as a child. I was not that smart. There's a good chance as an adult I would have.
I was going to say, Rod, by the time this came out, you were literally a teenager.
Oh, yeah. Wait, 90s?
You were literally 13.
Yeah, I probably still.
Yep.
arguably was dumber as a teenager than as an elementary school student. I'm not trying to amp myself up to be anything special.
Damn it, Rod.
So Rogue pokes that joke, which funny, I thought was going to be a payoff like a lot later and not in the same episode. That was a little throwaway there. They take off in the Blackbird. Everyone's just kind of doing normal business in the Blackbird. Then Jubilee kind of splits off from the main group to the back where Nightcrawler is like reading a Bible or something.
It's what he does.
Yeah. Talks to Nightcrawler about being adopted because
she's also adopted.
Yeah, she actually specifies that she was never adopted. She just ran around.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, she was fostered. She never actually was formally adopted.
But I just had never really put together and considered that this is the first time she's ever talked to definitely anyone that's been a mutant and like in the adoption foster system.
Yes.
But possibly anybody that's been.
Although I would not say that he was necessarily in the foster system.
He was in the river foster system. The circus foster? I don't know.
Which is worse? Is it the river foster system or the circus foster system?
Yeah, one of them was literally the foster system of God, like, hope you survive. And the other one was the U.S. government. So, I mean, the river might have been safer. I've had friends that go through the U.S. foster system, and it wasn't great for them.
Yeah.
Kurt ended up at a monastery and with loving circus parents.
Which apparently he dated one of his sisters, according to Joe.
Yeah, once again, guess what doesn't happen in Wakanda forever?
Yep.
They get to talk, and it's actually a sweet conversation. I don't know how I would receive this as a kid if I saw this in real time or if I would have even noticed. But
I think if I was in Jubilee's shoes, I would actually very much agree with her.
Yeah.
Because she's very much the like voice of the angsty teen who also like, to your point, she never got adopted. So like she focuses on the anger of it all, which I would probably be in a similar suit. I'm an angry person right now. I can't imagine if I didn't have a healthy family life to fall back on.
And it's interesting because it's not the same levels or caliber. It's just like slightly different, but also similar enough that like Kurt, although from like an Anglo-Saxon, like Caucasian background, is visibly not.
Yeah.
Like he's blue.
The Beast comments, he can't blend in modern society.
Yeah, unless he's in a trench coat. And Jubilee, who we have to be reminded of because animation, is an Asian American girl.
Yeah.
Even though maybe not to the same extent of looking like a demon, being like an Asian American teenager in America, in a white community in the 90s, had its challenges for her. And so I could just imagine how this must have been pretty exciting for her to like split off and be like, I need to talk to you, dude. How do you deal with all this? Because he also comes across as a very peaceful person. Even when he was in a little bit of duress about talking about the note from his birth mother, he still had like a lot of like hope in the way he talked and stuff. And so he continues this in this conversation, even though she's being angsty. He tells her about everyone being part of God's family, which coming out of the wrong mouth sounds really douchey. But he says it in a very loving tone, which you're like, I believe you. Even if I don't agree with it, I believe that you believe it.
I think because the way the conversation starts is she gets up from her seat to go talk to Nightcrawler, and she says the stuff that you said to Wolverine meant a lot to him.
That's right, yeah.
So she has a predisposition that he is not the negative stereotype, Tammy Faye, preacher, the things that we have all seen explicitly are bullshit. Like, this is not a negativity against organized religion, but we definitely know there was lots of snake oil happening in the 90s in particular that was coming to the forefront in the public eye.
Yeah, it's kind of, when you mentioned Tammy Faye, she's more of like late 90s Tammy Faye and less early 80s Tammy Faye.
Yeah.
But also that begs the question, probably not likely that Wolverine opened up about that to Jubilee, but hilarious to think
that
about Rogue.
Jubilee heard it from Rogue.
Yeah, we're kind of like that.
I think that is the most likely, because while we've seen there's definitely like some sort of relationship between Jubilee and Wolverine, it's not as close as in the comics where you see their existing relationship or the relationship that Wolverine has with Kitty Pryde. It's been touched on, but never been explored to the extent that Kitty was almost like a little sister to him.
And in the times we've seen her tag along with him, it's like he had inherited a stray cat.
Yeah, like the long shot episode. Yeah.
Where he's just like, I don't want to see you get hurt, but please fucking leave me alone.
Which is me with all children.
There you go.
I won't.
And you have a little sister
who's thousands of miles away.
So ideal situation.
Yeah, I get to be the cool brother who just clicks add to cart.
Say, I found this shirt that I want to buy for myself. It just says punk across the front. It's like professional uncle, no kids.
Nice.
Because the same thing. My whole family, we agree that like the kids go first in our family. And so like my niece is the only like grandchild. And she gets her first preference. And then we split up like budgets.
Yeah.
Because the adults, whatever. The shipping alone for my niece's Christmas present was $120, and it took up the whole front seat of my car. You know, worth it. She's 8. She deserves better than me. My brother did. But I'm the same way. I can add to cart or drop it off the post office.
No, you add to cart. Don't do the post office. That's why it costs you $120 to ship the fucking thing.
This is a weird situation. I hate calling. I'm not an influencer.
This is a weird situation. The fact that we're talking about family Christmas gifts after Christmas, this airs on an X-Men podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We're past weird conversation at this point. Just go.
Anyway, I don't consider myself an influencer because if anything, I have like a small audience than like I would think would be valuable to like a brand or something. However,
he has a Patreon. He's full of shit.
That's true too. But I'm definitely in the space, right? And so
fair.
I have access to things that I don't want to make it sound nefarious. It's just toys and stuff, but I have access to stuff that like it's easier for me to get through those channels than to try to like go off Amazon or something. Yeah. And so like, I'm in a privileged situation of some sorts where like my niece, I can be on literally what happened. I'm on FaceTime with her at Thanksgiving. What are you into this year? And she tells me, and I make a list of whatever contacts I have. Then I still pay for stuff when I can. But like, so it's like, we can be more selective with things, and so I just like kind of put them together and stuff. I'm the uncle that's like giving toys and like cotton candy, and then just dropping her off at my brother's place.
Yeah.
Anyway,
X-Men.
Oh yeah, so they're still talking about being in the foster care system or being adopted, and she asks him if he's mad about feeling abandoned or being abandoned because no matter how you cut it, we were abandoned, and
which is fair.
Yeah, and he says that he prays to God for the strength to forgive, which is a nice distinction because he doesn't say that he forgives or he naturally forgives.
He doesn't even say that he's not mad. Yeah.
He's just like, yep, we're going to let go and let God on that one. Which, fair. I don't know. It's a very thought out answer. And it sounds sincere because I've definitely, growing up in the church and stuff, have felt getting canned answers sometimes from church leaders and things. And
yeah.
I feel like even as a kid, you can tell like when it's like real and not stuff. And he definitely had a very genuine tone.
To me, as somebody who hasn't practiced literally since being confirmed as a teenager, which I know is a really weird statement to say out loud, it feels like the difference between understanding and responding.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, like to what you're saying with the canned answers is like people just will say stuff because they feel like that's what they're supposed to say.
Yeah.
Whereas you do feel like Kurt and his brothers in this monastery actually study the scriptures and care about their responses enough to discuss it and dive deeper into it.
Yeah.
The perception is in the modern day that most people are doing. Most people are just, to your point, giving a canned answer.
Anyway, the Blackbird lands and they're at the dam.
They're at a dam.
A dam, yeah.
You said the dam like we knew what this particular dam was.
The dam. They give the dam. No.
Sir, it's a Nightcrawler episode, so it's literally the goddamn.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Or the darn.
I was going with the Beavis and Butthead joke. Anybody have any questions? Is this a goddamn? And then everybody just awkwardly stares.
Oh, yeah. Remember the 90s when they're like, oh, any time we can say bitch or damn.
That's still to this day.
Right? And so Wolverine's like scoping out this stuff, and he's like, something's fishy here.
He says he smells a rat is his particular language. And because it's Wolverine, I didn't know if that was literal.
Yeah. He's like, oh, there's a lot of rats here. But I guess because of who we find out it is, he might actually specifically recognize some people, even just vaguely.
Yeah. I mean, that's why, especially knowing the setup of the episode, like, does he smell Mystique? Does he smell Creed? Does he just smell Friends of Humanity? Or is it a metaphor?
Yeah.
Didn't know which one it was, actually.
None of them bathe. That's the thing.
They definitely don't bathe.
Bigots and villains don't bathe.
Mystique definitely bathes.
Yeah.
She is so fucking prim and proper, dude.
Right. Or does she need to?
Unless she doesn't need to.
Yeah.
I feel like she still would just to relax.
Yeah, that's true.
Literally, we talk about it later in this episode. God damn, we're on page 1 of the notes still. She likes the finer things in life. She's definitely a bubble bath person.
That's true. I could see that.
Yeah.
Also, historically, bigots don't bathe, right? Because was it the colonizers came and took over like the Mayans and stuff? The Mayans like were burning incense because the Spanish smelled bad, but the Spanish thought that they were being treated like gods, which is the best part of poetic justice to them.
I never knew that, but that God, the arrogance is absurd.
Bigots don't bathe. Anyway, So he says they're going to go with them, and Nightcrawler's
he starts getting cold feet.
Yeah, he's like, I can't do this. There's just too much here. And I love Wolverine. He's like, all right, what's the problem? Don't have enough faith?
He actually tells him, he goes, have a little faith.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Have a little faith.
Yeah.
And I love that because even a good guy needs his balls chopped sometimes. I don't know why I said it that way, but you know what I mean.
That is a very different practice within certain groups.
Yeah. He's a monk. He's not a eunuch. Anyway.
Keep going, for the love of God. Keep
So
going.
they cut to, I guess, just some like regular door at the dam. And Jubilee knocks and says trick or treat because it's still Halloween.
Yep.
The same day.
Yep.
Because it's the daylight.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely got to be the next day.
The next day. So this is November 1st. Anyway, this might be one of the first times we actually have a specific date.
Well, aside from a very Morlock Christmas.
But that's true, yeah. We haven't gotten to it.
Yeah, which we didn't time that out or do. We didn't do it out of order.
I think it's going to happen around Valentine's Day, right?
Yeah, probably.
That's hilarious. Anyway, and one of the Friends of Humanity answers.
I don't know. This episode's going to have Joe Slepsky territory on it, so who knows? It might happen in the middle of fucking June.
So the Friends of Humanity answer.
Trick or treat fail.
Yeah, and he's like, Friends of Humanity, and takes him out.
Nightcrawler takes him out.
Oh, Nightcrawler, okay.
Because Nightcrawler pops up behind him.
That's true.
And then that's actually the most violence we've seen out of Nightcrawler, is like he legit punches this dude.
Yeah, you smell bad. I don't know why I put this just now, but Wolverine, whenever he refers to Nightcrawler's mom, he says mum, and I don't think he's done that in the other episodes. So I don't know if that was just weird captioning at the time, and my head was filling in mum when he was saying that.
May have been captioning, because as somebody who doesn't watch it with captions, aside from we have like the hard, heavy accent episodes, I only heard mom or mother. I didn't hear mom. It could just be the actor with the Canadian accent. I don't know.
One of those like blue white dress things where it's like, oh man, the whatever you influenced me on is like kind of what I'm hearing right now, you know? It's like, yeah, anyway, so I was like, oh, this is weird. So they split up.
Yeah.
So Wolverine and Jubilee go in a direction where they find a room full of weapons, which is really sus, and they also never return to.
Yeah, it literally says blasters and munitions on the sides of them.
Yeah. Surprisingly not lasers, because that's all they exist in this universe.
Blasters are lasers.
I guess so. Oh, that's true. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess the missiles are also lasers. And then Rogue and Nightcrawler.
Those are the munitions, Rod.
There you go. Rogue and Nightcrawler are going through a hallway looking for Nightcrawler's mom. Interesting little detail, which I don't know if was an error or a Freudian slip on Wolverine's part. When he radios in, he says, looking for your mother to Rogue. I went back and listened to it again to see if like Nightcrawler had said something for Wolverine to respond to, and it was Rogue that he was talking to directly, and he's like, looking for your mom. And I was like, that must have been a dialogue error.
I got the impression he was just saying it to the two of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, with whatever he was saying, he knew they were both hearing, so he was talking to Nightcrawler.
Or it might have just been like a fun like writing slip. It's moments before this happens.
Absolutely possible. I didn't get that, but I also drink.
Yeah. And so like literally seconds later, Rogue and Nightcrawler hear a voice down the hallway. Nightcrawler goes to open the door and Rogue recognizes the voice. But before she gets to finish like her thought of recognizing it, Nightcrawler just busts down the door. Rightfully so.
Wouldn't you too? Yeah.
Yeah, he's been looking for his birth mother for such a long time.
And he also does not have the instincts of any of the X-Men of walking into a trap. It's like, there could just be a dude with a gun ready and pointed at you right now.
And it's immediately Mystique walking out of the shadows.
Which I appreciated that they didn't try to hide it.
Yeah, he immediately starts talking.
It's almost like how some of like the stuff in the previous episode with like the reveals of Magneto as the father and who the parents are of like, oh, Quicksilver, Wanda, your mom wasn't, or your dad wasn't actually your dad. And it's like, okay, good. Don't talk down to us with like, it almost feels like a shitty version of an M. Night Shyamalan reveal if you try to make that last for like 25 minutes, you know.
Or they could have kicked the door down. It was Jerry Springer with paternity tests.
Maury was more the paternity test guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't very good at the trash show.
No, Jerry like occasionally would have it, but Maury was definitely paternity test dude.
Wait, was Maury... Don't need to go down that tangent. Anyway, Mystique immediately yells. It's weird because it's almost like
that was the best moment of the entire episode for me. She's basically like, you idiot, they didn't want you here.
Yeah, they wanted your brother, which I was like, you just threw a lot at them.
Yeah.
All at once. There's a lot to process there.
Yeah.
And so the two of them are like,
what?
Wait, what? Yeah. So they find out they're siblings.
Yeah, so she starts to tell the story of, oh, Rogue adopted you, but before you, I did have two kids that she doesn't say she abandoned them, but she put up two kids. And one of them obviously is Kurt and the other one is Creed.
Which there's so much to unpack there that they don't return to that like Mystique and Sabretooth hooked up.
Yeah, I had a little bit further insight from the comics, which I don't believe is ever addressed in the show, so not spoiling any future episodes. It happens as she is posing as a German spy. Lenny Zauber is the name, and she's introduced Victor Creed, aka Sabretooth, when he was in Germany on a mission as a freelance assassin.
She's like a mother version of Nick Cannon. She's like gallivanting around the world, having kids.
I feel like we're going to get like some sort of like slander because of the Nick Cannon comparison to the fucking murder assassin lady.
She's mothering children all around the world, just like willy-nilly.
She has a third of his, sir.
So far.
And one is adopted.
So far. Anyway.
Creed, not a big fan of that because he's in the room above them in like a control room and just like, wait, brother? He's like, do not call me your brother.
And they don't address the situation, so I have to paint this picture of what you see here. They're like a danger room situation where they're in a lower level that's in some sort of dark like metal room or whatever.
It's a dam.
Is that how a dam works?
No.
Oh, yeah, because like Creed is up in like a control room that's like...
That also has a poison gas thing.
Yeah.
Where it was like something about like, was it like a room to purify water or something like that? Like,
oh, that's right.
There was something where that's what the gas was supposed to do, but I did not know that science.
So that means it's like a chlorine or something?
I don't know. All I know is there was a gas that was knocking all them out.
Yeah.
And it was in a room that definitely was not... If you have a room that does that, it should be like in like a vat or something or a pressure chamber because you wouldn't want a door that could just open.
Right, yeah. They could just be kicked out. I was like, I don't know.
That was like a regular door, basically.
Yeah, it's true. See, in my head, I was like, oh, this is like a Friends of Humanity headquarters that's built within a facade of a dam. But when he was saying that...
It was an actual dam.
Yeah, so he was saying that he's used to purify water. It means that room was actively, used for water processing.
But I don't know how to purify water in a...
gas?
Yeah.
Not a water... sanitation and sewage or something?
I don't know. Throw this on TikTok and see if somebody yells at us.
There you go. How do you purify water? And can you do it with a gas?
Can you do it inside a dam?
Yeah. The Nightcrawler then says that he will pray that Creed will find the strength in God's love. Which
he would not want to hear that.
What a thing to say when you found out 15 seconds earlier that you had a brother who was trying to murder you.
He didn't know the murder was happening just yet. He actually, of anybody, I think the one who can successfully plead ignorance and it makes sense is Nightcrawler, that he doesn't know Creed is a racist piece of shit.
Yeah.
He's a screaming lunatic, but like he doesn't even really know, like he doesn't know that Creed is one of the founders or the founder of the Friends of Humanity.
Yeah. That's kind of sad, actually. It's more sad. Wow, that's another nice little like soap opera dynamic. Two brothers that are like literal opposites.
The most opposite. Yeah.
Physically,
spiritually, like yeah. One has principles.
Yeah. Rogue asked Mystique, "Why would you turn in Nightcrawler?" And Mystique immediately says, "Well, you know, Rogue, you were always my favorite." Jesus.
Yep. Which great mom. Yeah. Shocking that she gave up 2 children.
Yeah, mother that we know of.
Yeah, and then basically she said she had to choose between sacrificing Kurt or they would come after Rogue. And then Creed immediately calls bullshit on. He's like, no, stop trying to save yourself. That wasn't a part of the deal.
Yeah. You're out on your own on this one.
Yeah.
And then, as we mentioned before, there's like a water purifying gas that can also kill people. So he like hits the button that does that. And Nightcrawler like poofs into the control room.
Yeah, he vamps.
Vamps? Okay. And so... This is a little bit of like, we're not a flex, like a little bit of a leap from what you guys were saying about the logic of Nightcrawler's teleporting and stuff.
No.
Because the gas was happening, so he could, like, no one could see anything.
It wasn't heavy enough that it wasn't. I think if you're in a room, there is a lit up control room. It was enough for him to be able to see because he didn't do it as one instant jump. He did like 1 or 2 to get up there.
Okay.
So I think that was within the realm of the power set because he could also see what he was teleporting into in the next room.
So he gets in there. It's like, so about that. And Creed is yelling at him while they're fighting. And I put in here. Like, so at this point, Creed's family, he is the minority in it. He's the only like Homo sapien that we know of. They haven't revealed powers or anything. I don't know if they ever do. But at this point, everyone else in his family that he knows of is a mutant. And
Dad is Sabretooth. Mom is Mystique. Half brother is Nightcrawler. Adopted sister is Rogue.
Yeah, and he's still just like hating on everybody. It's just a weird energy of like, how far are you going to take this logic? So anyway,
to a little bit further explanation on the character in the comics, part of what takes him down the route towards founding the Friends of Humanity is his disdain for his family. So for him, it's just proving that he's doing the wrong thing. Obviously wrong and convoluted and fucked up in every way, but it's the more he's having it like shoved down his throat. In the show, he only knows at least about Graydon Sr.
Yeah.
He may or may not know about Mystique, but he definitely didn't know about Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
So that, I think, was the reveal in the folder that gets thrown at him, is it's not only are both your parents, which you lied about one of them to us, and then you lied a second time. Here's the thing you don't even know about.
Yeah, it's your brother.
Yeah.
And then who knows if Rogue was even in that file.
I doubt Rogue was in the file, to be honest.
But to me, especially because the mutant stuff has so much to do with genetics, maybe he doesn't turn out to be a mutant, but like even just like thinking that there's a high probability that, you know, that you're in that pool too. Every single other person in your family is a mutant. Like at that point, even if in the end that he never is, if I were his like shoes at that point, I'd be like, am I also?
Yeah, because they have sort of alluded to it in the show itself when Jean and Scott were talking about having kids, the fact that if they had kids would likely be a mutant.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like one of those like, dominant recessive things of like, if you have two, it's more likely to happen.
Yeah. And she's already said that like he's just lucky not to be blue, let alone we don't even know the mutant part. I don't know. There's a lot. There's a lot of things that are implied there.
Lots of unpacking.
And see, Wolverine and Jubilee get there just in time to stop the gas, and Mystique gets away. We don't see exactly what happens, but they cut away to like a hallway, and the Friends of Humanity, like soldiers or guards or whatever, are running through the hallway, and there's like one guy that's like down, and it's like a
generic thug dude.
Yeah. But also kind of unexplained because we haven't seen the X-Men like take anybody out.
We literally only saw the dude at the door, and it's not the same guy who was at the door.
Yeah. And then after the Friends of Humanity run off, we see that, oh, that was Mystique. That was like hiding. So good hiding job. And they run out the hallway too. And Wolverine has Rogue, what I call, make an X-Man door, which is punch a hole in the wall. And they all run out, and Nightcrawler turns around and goes back for Mystique, despite everyone else being like, don't go back for that crazy woman.
And I wrote down 25 wants to know truth. I think so. That was the indication of Kurt's age.
Oh.
Was that I think there was something where it's like, I've been waiting 25 years to find out the truth or something.
Okay.
And I could be writing stuff down wrong because I tend to do that when I'm taking notes, but I think that was the indication of it. But at the same time, Creed has run to one of the helicopters too. Yep.
And Mystique is running away, presumably like on the top of the dam or something, like in like a corridor.
It is the top of the dam. That's not presumed.
Okay. And Nightcrawler intercepts.
Yep, he bamps up there.
Yeah, freaks her out, which fair, because that's looks super frightening. Just to see like a cloud of sulfur and then a person.
Yeah.
And she tells him the story. So he's like, why, basically. Which I get needing closure. Maybe a better time
Yeah,
to go through.
bad time.
Yeah.
Not the safest timing.
Yeah. So she runs through like that she's lived many lives. I thought it was an odd, maybe like a 90s decision to specify that she was always women.
I think that probably just came down to where anything related to LGBT could be seen, because she's presented as having male partners.
Yeah.
So they are definitely focused on keeping it.
Yeah, that's why I mean it's like
90s. 30 years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Because she has literally 15 seconds before this was a man in a hallway. So she specifies that she's been many women in her life.
Yep.
And some rich, some poor, and she's preferred rich. She was married to the Count of Austria.
Austrian, yep.
Who she says wasn't handsome but was rich. If they were trying to animate him to be ugly, I didn't get that. He was just a dude.
He was just kind of frumpy. Yeah.
I don't know. Like maybe he was. I guess maybe in the X-Men world he wasn't, because all the X-Men are like really just cut no matter who they are.
Magneto in his 60s or early 70s.
He's like visible pec muscle.
Yeah, he's like just fucking shredded.
So I guess maybe by X-Men world standards, yeah, like oh yeah, he's the unattractive one.
Yeah.
So she married him for his money and said she had a really good life.
She obviously got knocked up.
Yeah, and was outed when she had a blue baby, which would probably do it.
It wasn't even that her kid being a mutant, but it also revealed that she was a mutant, and that was her secret. That was what she was more mad about.
Yeah. So I guess that everybody just inferred that because she had a kid that was a mutant that she was, or did she like turn because she was in labor?
Based on the stuff that was shown, they inferred it because it didn't look like it ever showed her turning back from the two different times we've seen the Nightcrawler births. Birthings.
And so she was upset that she had to start over again and assumes that he hates her for abandoning him. And then he just kind of says, I'm just sad for you, which fair.
Yeah.
Because that's he's the kid.
Yeah.
He's hearing like a grown woman who's his mother say she's basically been hopping gold digging situations, and she was willing to abandon a whole ass human being for like money.
When he says that he's sad, I think it's like that extra twist of the knife for her, because she's like, I'm even a freak within my own people, like even as a mutant. Because she says she needs to steal parts of other people's lives to survive.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's so shitty.
Yeah. She'd rather be hated than pitied.
Yeah. It's easier because if you're hated, you could hate somebody back. But if they pity you, like, what are you supposed to do back to that?
It's almost like you're weak.
Yeah.
And Mystique says that she didn't want him, and says a bunch of other things that she's clearly just trying to get him to be angry and say something out of turn.
Right.
But once again, the child in the situation says that he'll just have to ask for God's grace, which once again, he doesn't specify that he's not mad at her. He just says that he's going to ask God for wisdom to
be able to forgive.
Or whatever. So then back at the fight, Rogue and Wolverine are taking out the Friends of Humanity, the helicopter thing. Rogue, of course, is just taking down whatever flying objects there are.
Yeah, they have a scenario where it's the one helicopter is like tracking on Rogue. She flies in front of the other helicopter, so they end up shooting each other out. And then in classic G.I. Joe fashion, you see the helicopter start to go down, and the two people have parachutes. Just want to point out, you jump at that height, that parachute ain't deploying quick enough.
There's a couple parachute things are going to happen here. The questions about Creed gets away in the helicopter. Back with Nightcrawler and Mystique, they're still hashing out their whole thing. And
it's what they do.
Mystique was like, how could anybody forgive me or whatever? And they're just going back and forth about the whole faith and the family and all this stuff. And Nightcrawler says that God wants everyone to be healed, which once again, coming out of the wrong mouth and the wrong tone, sounds super douchey, but he sounds like he actually means it. Creed interrupts this moment by shooting Mystique. She's in the middle of saying that she doesn't deserve, and you feel like she's going to say your forgiveness, but as she falls over the dam because she fucking got shot.
She got shot, to be fair, she got shot in the arm from Creed, who was on his own helicopter, just to be clear. But yeah, she takes the wound to the arm, and then she does the fugitive fall. Yeah.
And says prayers.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of left to interpretation. So it's like forgiveness is one thing, but like your prayers is like coming from someone who's sincere like that.
Yeah.
Is almost more, because it's like not only do I forgive you, it's like her son wanted better things. There's a lot that because I think nowadays we think of like thoughts and prayers as chimeric, especially with how many horrible things happen in the world every day and stuff. Coming from someone who actually practices faith, prayers is like a pretty big thing. Because it encompasses not only forgiveness but also like a lot of good things and stuff. So she falls over the dam. If this was any other show, you would just assume she died.
If you were not watching a cartoon, you would assume she died.
And that they weren't superpowered, because she fell off the top of a fucking dam into water after she got shot in the shoulder.
Here's the thing, man. We grew up in the 90s. Lots of people went off the edge of dams and cartoons and stuff like that. You would not think that shit would kill you. Yeah. You did not hear stories about people doing that and surviving. I just want to point that out.
Or even just off like the second or third story of a regular building and not a dam.
Yeah, seriously.
So Creed shoots the dam, and as it explodes, Nightcrawler bamfs away, and so he's trying to go find Mystique because she fell into the river or whatever.
But when he shoots the dam, it bursts and it like takes out his own helicopter. Yeah. Way to go, dumbass!
Instant karma.
Yeah.
And Nightcrawler, while he's trying to look for Mystique, Rogue plucks him out and is like, "Not today, not the time." Also, this bitch keeps coming back, so you'll have another chance.
It's funny because she still does call her mama when she sees her. Like, it's not like she doesn't acknowledge that it's her parent anymore.
This is generational trauma.
This is generational trauma, the fucking episode.
Yeah. Then we're kind of at the winding down Full House moment where he's like wrapping up the exposition and stuff. And she says, well, it's funny how the Friends of Humanity get arrested for blowing up a dam but not hunting mutants, which fair.
Yeah. We see that all the time and stuff, and not even that, but sometimes it's like mob bosses never got taken down for somebody dying. They got taken down for like tax fraud.
Al Capone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or and even just in like modern day stuff, like digital trading card ban and stuff. Like it's gonna be something dumb like NFT fraud or something. But then there was like a whole like history of horrible humanitarian crimes.
Nope. Stuff. White collar crime. You then get the moment where Rogue is confident that they will find Mystique, and you have the brother sister moment, and Nightcrawler's wondering like, why did she sacrifice herself? Which I don't know if I necessarily saw it as her sacrificing herself.
Yeah, it was more of like a hesitation.
It's not like Creed was going to follow her with the shot, but they're having a moment and Mystique pops up out of the water behind them. And it's definitely that suspension of disbelief that she's just out of the viewpoint, that they don't see her disappearing into the woods.
She starts tearing up a little bit. So.
Yeah.
I guess maybe, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I guess the thing about, Nightcrawler saying that she sacrificed, maybe she didn't sacrifice, but she hesitated, which is like a small baby step of character development from previous, where she was just all like, here's my kid, let me go.
Throwing one kid in a basket down a river, right. I would call that character development.
Yeah, so she gets away because, once again, everybody gets away and they come back. They cut away. Creed is tied up and captured somewhere, like in you're getting like a helicopter or a ship or something. Mm-hmm. Friends of Humanity in the not
clan hoods.
Yeah, jeez.
Just gonna call it out
in the gas station.
Dollar store clan hoods.
Yeah, they've captured him and they're like, well, you done fucked up and you're a kid of mutants and stuff, so now you're really gonna have to prove yourself. And they throw him out of a helicopter with a parachute that I've never gone skydiving, but I don't think parachutes can go off on their own, can they?
Yes, they can.
They can?
Yes.
Okay.
I've definitely seen military training where literally somebody jumps out of a plane and the second they're out, it's already like trailing behind them. Okay. That is a thing.
Can you survive if you have your hands tied?
He lands more comfortable than I think he would be able to. It would probably be a more painful landing. You could survive, but it's usually like you're gonna like
broken bones.
Not even broken bones, but like you can't balance, like you're gonna whack your head on the ground or something.
So they drop him off at Sabretooth's cabin.
Yeah. It's also like redneck Sabretooth.
Yeah, right.
It's Sabretooth out of costume, and he's got like a curly hair, like he has locks going.
Yeah, it's like reverse bigot.
Yeah.
Sabretooth. So like, good luck, kid. I don't know if they ever return to this, because I think we're hitting the era where I don't think I've watched from here on out.
I don't believe they come back to address this.
Okay. But man, that could be an interesting.
Yeah.
Or you just assume that he died.
Eric Lewald does talk about it, whereas this is like one of the darkest endings that they've written because you don't see the result of this.
Yeah. Is this like, he kill you or worse?
He's definitely the kind of dude that if he's going to kill you, he's going to kill you over the course of weeks.
Yeah. And he has like animal friends and stuff. There's like a lot of implications there.
I don't think he even needs the animal friends. He has to share if he lets the animal friends do shit. Dude's got natural claws. He does not need help for shit. But it also was the converse of, you had this change of heart with Mystique. So you had one kid having at least a possible positive outlook, and then the other one is like, this is gonna go so wrong for you.
Yeah, so that's where it ended. Like you said, dark ending. New episode for me.
Also, same writer as the Nightcrawler episode.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That makes sense.
If I'm pronouncing his name wrong, I apologize. Len Yui is the...
Okay.
Or Len Yuley, Uhley.
Okay.
But yeah, so he actually came back from the Nightcrawler episode to do this one.
Which makes sense, because Nightcrawler, like, this is only 2 episodes he's been in the whole series, right?
Yeah, and I think you need somebody, to your point of like, if you're going to talk about God and come across as sincere, you need to have a very skilled writer to be able to do it. Otherwise, it's going to come across as, like you said, it could come across as pretty douchey.
Yeah, kind of like 90s youth pastory and stuff. And also the voice actor for Kurt is really good. Like, he's a very like endearing voice. Like, I believe that he would be like a minister of some sort, or a priest or a monk or whatever, you know?
So the only thing that stood out to me with the voice actor is it actually to me felt like he toned down the accent just a little bit.
Oh yeah, I could tell at this time from
yes.
Time.
Yeah. It's not that it was bad, but it definitely felt like slightly less German. Yeah, slightly less German monk.
Any little fun tidbits on this one?
No, that was really it. Was bringing back the same writer, and then that Eric acknowledged that this was one of the darker endings, and
very cool.
Pulling in stuff like, this was how Graydon was birthed in the comics. Also, like Mystique being a German spy and the free. Oh man, I feel like I need to go back and reread some of those like classic X-Men stories, because I'm like, I missed so much of this because I didn't really start reading X-Men on the regular until 2005.
Okay,
yeah. Although by the time this comes out, or within a week or two of this episode coming out, there is a collected version of X-Men Adventures, which was the comic that came out originally alongside the series. First few issues were one-to-one replications of the actual stories, but eventually they started doing their own stories that were set in this world. I don't believe they are considered canon, but they were meant to be the same vibe as the animated series. So yeah, maybe we'll do a supplemental episode or something around that.
Okay, yeah. Thanks for joining us. If you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them into the comments for either the YouTube upload or official Instagram post about this episode. If you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on the podcast app of your choosing. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and CastBox. What's your generational trauma, and why was it your mom?